Hi, Andy Badge here from BBC. Did last season's success in this competition instill a stronger belief for the squad and you going into the rest of the season?
I don't think so. I think it's just the nature of this football club that, irrespective of sort of your recent history in any competition, you're expected to, particularly domestically, to try and be successful again. So I think from our perspective, it doesn't really matter that we won it last year. I don't think we know that sort of playing for this football club means that you're challenged for every competition, and I think it helped us last year in terms of our progress as a team, because the start of the year was obviously really challenging, and having the cup competition and doing well in it, and winning it sort of in the first half of the year, I thought accelerated some of our progress and belief in what we were doing. But in terms of this year, I mean, as I said, it wouldn't matter how we went last year. We're expected to challenge in all competitions, and that's what we'll be doing.
I think there are still a few injury problems in McGregor, Jota, and Starfelt, and games are coming almost twice a week at the moment with the Champions League and the congested Premiership as well before the World Cup. So, as well as this being a test for the players physically and so demanding, does it test you as a manager?
Look, I'm not playing, so it's a lot easier physically, that's for sure. But yeah, look, it's just challenging in respect to making sure that the whole squad is primed to go, and we've been planning for this from pre-season. We knew the schedule, we knew it was going to be really congested, particularly in this part, and that's why we've put kind of the squad together that we have, and we still sort of even late in the piece with guys like Oliver and Sayed made sure we got the extra bodies in, because I knew we'd need them during this period. So for me, and I guess the coaching staff and all the staff here, is just making sure that the ones who are healthy, we're getting the sufficient work into them, that whether they've played the previous game or not, that they're ready to go.
Just on the squad, Ange, can you give us a squad update? Is Jota back for this one?
No. So Jota's progressing. He's out training, but won't be right for tomorrow. I think from the weekend it'll pretty much be as is. The ones closest to coming back, I guess, are Jota and Turnbull, but again they'll miss tomorrow, and we'll just see about the weekend. Obviously, Cal and Carl are still weeks away.
Okay, thanks. Just in terms of your strikers, you've obviously got two very good strikers, Joyous and Kyogo. Wonder what factors you need to consider before determining who gets the nod for any particular game.
Just whatever team I think will win the game for us, be successful, and whether they fit in or not into that fixture. So as I've already said, we've got a lot of games, and it would be impossible for one of them to carry the load through this whole. If we wanted to keep them healthy, and if we want to keep them sharp, especially in the position they play, if we ask them to play, we've still got 8 games in 24 days. Then if I ask one of them to do that, then I'm pretty guaranteed they'll break down and not perform at the levels we want. So it's just a matter of, like I said, every game comes along, I try and select a team I think will get the job done on the day, and then within the individuals within that is whether they fit in or not.
With this busy schedule, how much you have put preparations in place for the World Cup break now? What you plan to do with your squad in terms of getting them back after the World Cup? What's the plan in place, and how have you approached it? Because different managers have different views.
Yeah, we again, it's been part of our planning sort of from pre-season. We've had, you kind of work with with the things that are known, and that is that we're obviously going to a trip to Australia straight after sort of the last game for a week, for a couple of games there, and then the players will have a sort of mini break for about a week or so, and then we head to Portugal for a camp before the resumption. So they're the knowns. The unknowns, of course, are we'll see which players end up going to the World Cup. What other sort of players, where they are physically, and it'll almost be like, well, we're going to have some individualised sort of programs for some of them, depending on, like I said, if they've gone to the World Cup, when do we give them a break? When do they come back in? If they're in rehab, what sort of time off we give them. So we've got a plan in terms of the collective, but within that there'll be some sort of individual sort of programs.
Does it concern you that there's an unknown quantity to the season, that you don't know quite what you're going to have when you come back after the World Cup? It's almost effectively 2 different seasons, and you could be great in the first half and then it all goes to pieces.
I hope not, mate. I'm a bit more optimistic than that. But look, I think, you try and treat it, it's obviously a little bit different, but here in Scotland, we kind of have a natural break around that time of the year. Like I said, the only sort of difference now is, some of our players will be actually at a World Cup. So there are a lot of unknowns there, not just for us, for every club, I guess, not just in Scotland, around the world, in terms of what impact a World Cup has sort of, mid-season. But as I said, I kind of tend to focus on the stuff that's known and what we can do to control the environment, make sure we're ready, and that's what we'll do. And as I said, I'm hopefully a bit more optimistic than you, mate, and hopefully it doesn't all fall apart in the second half of the year.
Gabriel?
Hi, Ange. Just talking about the World Cup, the semi-final of this competition, I'm sure, is in January after the tournament. It's quite far away and very unusual to have a kind of split like that. But would it just be a big boost for the next few weeks before the World Cup, knowing that you've got the reward of Hampden pretty much soon after you come back?
Well, I'll just finish saying that I'll work with what's known. You've put in a lot of unknowns there, mate, including we've got to win tomorrow before I even start thinking about that kind of stuff. So, like I said, from my perspective, we've put in plans in place for a while now about how we're going to treat that period. We're going to have to be flexible within that because we just don't know how it's going to affect individual players. But, in terms of competitions, and we're not looking beyond Wednesday because that's a big game for us, and away from home in a cup game is always a bit of edge to it. So looking forward to that, and then we've got a game literally 2.5 days later. So we're not really looking beyond that from a competition perspective.
And it is Motherwell tomorrow night. It ended up quite a tight game between the two of you a few weeks ago. What specific threats did Stevie Hamill's side pose?
Well, like any team, I guess, in the competition when you play away from home, and particularly in the Cup, I think we've seen that in recent years, that there are always teams that sort of go on Cup runs and do really well in Cup competitions, and sometimes belying their league form. So, from our perspective, it's just about making sure our form's been pretty good. It's been pretty consistent over a large part of a year, and when we play well, play our football, home or away, we know we're hard to stop, and that's got to be our aim for tomorrow.
Cheryl, please.
Hi, Ange. You said there that being a cup game, there is more of an edge. Do you feel like that tension that surrounds cup games, does that affect the players in a different way than it would a league game?
I don't think it. I mean, you try it not to let it affect. I mean, from our perspective, it doesn't really change anything for us because our approach is pretty consistent. But like I said, sometimes with clubs, because the league, there's a lot of pressure there because you're always fighting for something, whether that's being champion or top half or avoiding relegation, and cup competition gives you an opportunity to maybe free yourself up a little bit, which I think sometimes it gives teams a little bit more license to be a bit more aggressive in their approach. It doesn't, shouldn't affect us, shouldn't affect the players because our approach is the same all the time. But you've got to be wary that an opposition, in a one-off game, can lift their levels and maybe be a little bit more aggressive in their approach because they know they can progress the next round.
The game against Hibs on Saturday, it seemed to click for Celtic in terms of taking chances away that they'd previously kind of missed. Do you feel like that's came at the right time now with the games coming up?
Well, there's never a bad time. That's fair to say. But I think from my perspective, I just think we keep, as I said before the game, we just have to keep doing what we're doing. If you keep banging on the door, like I said, somebody will answer. The worst thing we can do is when the goals aren't going in, is change our approach because they're not going in when we know that we're still creating chances. I mean, that's where I think, some lose their way a little bit. The answer doesn't lie in doing something differently. The answer lies in, continuing to believe in our approach, and eventually we'll take those chances, and that's what happened on the weekend. There was at least a couple of the goals that came from deflections that went in where, in the Champions League or in previous games, it would hit the post and go out. And, that's the fine lines. But what you can't do is lose your resolve or belief in what you do because you're not getting the outcomes. We believe in the processes. We believe in how we play our football. If we weren't creating chances, then that would be a different sort of discussion for me. But even through this period where we haven't scored as many, I still think our football to that final third has been good.